Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 86 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, while I've been here in Japan, dear viewers, I've had the chance to actually talk to a bunch of the people in the program and a lot of Japanese people about Super Sentai. And surprisingly, a lot of the people that are here for this program actually have no idea what Super Sentai is. I find it fascinating that everybody here knows about Gundam and manga and anime, but when I bring up Super Sentai, they're like, what the heck is that? And of course I have to explain to them that's Power Rangers, and they're like, oh, you mean the Dino Force. So that's kind of what I've been dealing with for the last 3 or 4 weeks right now. So, but what I've tried to go ahead and do is kind of enlighten them as to what Super Sentai is, how it became Power Rangers, and really try to have a dialogue with people about what I'm passionate about, because all I've been hearing for the last few weeks is anime, manga, anime. So that's just kind of the way it goes. But I did have somebody from the program actually watch the Sentai 199 movie with me, and I got the chance to kind of explain, hey, what's going on, what this story is about, who these people are, and all that real fun stuff. And since she wasn't familiar with Sentai at all, and was only familiar with the original Power Rangers, there was a lot I had to go ahead and explain. But through the course of the movie, she did ask a very interesting question. She was asking me about the Sentai 199 movie, why are they having a crossover with the previous year's team? And I thought to myself, well, hey, just give her the standard answer, Goranger, Gokaiger, they're supposed to cross over and all that. And I told her that, and that was pretty much the end of it at that point. But then I started to think about it a little bit more from the perspective of, somebody who's a big fan and really into the history, because I thought to myself, why are they crossing over with the Goranger? Because the movie of Sentai 199 is not the typical Sentai movie. Because Sentai movies are typically standalone films that tell their own adventures separate to the main series, or adventures that do have plot points that will return into the series later on. I think the first time I had really seen this was probably with Gokaiger, but again, I would have to probably go back and look at the older movies. But we never had this type of movie where it was both a crossover and a celebration of the previous 35 years. And yes, I know you got Goranger versus Super Sentai, but that's a completely different type of movie that they were trying to go ahead and accomplish. And we'll get into that discussion at another time. But Sentai 199 really stands out because it is two different movies. It's the celebration of Sentai as well as the traditional crossover with the previous team. And what I really kind of thought about in that context is, why are the Gokaiger meeting the Goranger? Because the more I thought about it, this movie should be Sentai 199 Gokaiger versus Goranger. So I thought to myself, shouldn't this movie actually be about the Gokaiger, the newest Sentai, or who haven't even really been deemed Sentai, actually getting the approval of the first Sentai team ever? And that's why I want to go ahead and kind of discuss today is, why was this something that was not done and we really saw no evidence of within the series? Because I just think it's kind of an interesting anomaly when you talk about what Gokaiger was trying to go ahead and accomplish through its theme and through the movie as well, but something that was never really realized within the series exactly. And I know you guys got a lot of comments and questions brewing. I'm going to try and answer all the concerns that you guys may have here. So I'm going to try and go step by step into this. Now, let's analyze why they were crossing over with the Goranger in the first place, other than the obvious they were going to do one movie as opposed to two, and I guess they didn't have the budget for 2 films. Well, the thing we see in the movie is that the Goranger, the previous team, is part of that long tradition of, we're going to protect the Earth, we are nobler than you kind of mentality. Not that they necessarily have that, but that's kind of the vibe you get about the first 34 Sentai teams, is that their job is and always has been to protect Earth from whatever threat, whether it be internal, external, from the future, or whatever. That's their job. The Gokaiger, their main goal was to find the greatest treasure in the universe, and they just happened to be on Earth to go ahead and do it. So up until this point in the series, they really have no interest in protecting Earth. It's just, oh, Earth is in the way of what our long-term goals are going to go ahead and be. And this movie is about the Gokaiger getting the acceptance of the previous Sentai in order to be a part of this fraternity of heroes, if you will, and to be honored with the title of Sentai. Because as we know through the Toei universe, you got Kamen Rider, you got Gavin, you got all these other heroes. They're protecting Earth, protecting space, doing a number of things, but there are only 34 at this time Sentai teams that had that distinction and honor, which is why they all banded together to fight the Zanyak when they went ahead and attacked. But again, the Gokaiger had to earn that from the previous teams. They had to work together with the Gosager, where they realized they're not all that different, and that, you know, protecting Earth is something they just kind of have to do given the situation that they're in. And also when all the keys basically come to life, and we have, I don't even know if it's the real people, I guess you'd call it the spirits of them, talking and say, hey, Tensu Sentai and Kaizu Sentai, you know, Kaizu Sentai, we accept you to be part of Super Sentai, so we're going to give you our powers. Which, again, is what the whole series is about, is them earning the respect of the other Sentai to be included into that fraternity, to unlock the powers so that they could gain the ultimate treasure, but they ultimately dismiss that for the more important purpose of saving the world. That's what Gokaiger is all about. And yes, in that scene where they have all the keys floating around and the people come to them, they do get the approval of Goranger, the first Ranger, and the actor that went ahead and played him. But when you think about it more, shouldn't this film have not been them meeting the Gosager, who are, again, the second newest Sentai at that point, but shouldn't they begin the approval from the original team? Because the thing about Gokaigers, again, they had to befriend a lot of characters from previous Sentai in order to gain their powers, to use them. So the Gosager in this movie, after they learned to work with them, not only did they fight with them, but they gave their powers back to the Gokaiger, saying, you know what, you guys need this more than we do. We think Earth is in good hands, that we don't necessarily need to do anything. Now, of course, that's a debate for another time as to what they really should be doing with those powers, but I digress. And we've seen it throughout the rest of the episodes to where, you know, they meet guest star after guest star and they have to, you know, again, gain their approval to gain their powers. I will note that that was an afterthought, that they were going to have one or two cameos, and beyond that, there weren't going to be any more cameos from previous actors, but it became so popular and so well received that they continued to do that over and over and over again. So that's one thing. But to have the Gosager in there, I don't think is a powerful enough message. I think if you take the original team, the original 5 Gorangers, and, you know, have them in there, then you get this old versus new. You have Captain Kirk passing the baton to Captain Picard, the next generation, literally. You know, moving and transitioning from one era to the next, whatever that era is going to be, which we will eventually see once, you know, Gokaiger becomes or goes into history a little bit further than it has been thus far. Because I do think that them meeting the Goranger and finding these people who protected Earth for so long, and that they're still doing it, I think means a lot more than the team that just got done with it and went home and didn't really have any major consequences. By which I want to get into a point about the actors here in a minute. And actually, let's get into the point about the actors. Now, there are a number of things I think people are going to tell me why they didn't go ahead and do it. First of all, let's address the elephant in the room. Now, the original actor who played the Yellow Ranger in Super Sentai did commit suicide in the 1970s. So, of course, that character or that actor is no longer around to go ahead and play that character. Now, they did have a replacement for him. And actually, let me give the actor's name. The actor who played the original Yellow Ranger is Baku Hatakeyama. That was the guy who originally played the Yellow Ranger. Now, during Sentai, he actually, or during Goranger, he actually left the show to be replaced by Jiro Dorama, only to come back at a later time and become the Yellow Ranger once more. But the actor who played the second Yellow Ranger, Jiro Dorama, he's actually still alive. He's still around and kicking. And I know what you're going to say. His character died, yes, but as we've established in Gokaiger, death means nothing. Rio and Melee are free from hell. Black Condor is back from heaven. The Zoo Ranger back from heaven. So there's no reason why they couldn't bring the second Yellow Ranger back to go ahead and do this. Because I do think if we could have got these actors back, it would have meant so much more. Because one, in the context of just the show itself, you get the 5 original actors back. It would be like now trying to get Jason, Billy, Zach, Kimberly, and Tommy back on the Power Rangers to meet the Super Mega Force Rangers. Yeah, it's great when Tommy is there and meets them, but when you get all of them, that's even more. That's better. That's great. So I think that would have been something landmark for the series, you know, the first generation and the current generation. And I think the last time that actually happened was when they met Jacka, which was back in the 1970s. So that would almost be unprecedented in the series for the original team to meet the new team. And of course, with the actors, again, I think a lot of people are going to point out to me, well, they're retired, they don't do acting anymore. Well, with the budget that Sentai has and all that, and the fact that they were able to get the guy who played Goranger, and of course the guy who played the Blue Ranger, because he later played Big One. I mean, you got 2 of the 5 right there. You couldn't get the other 3 to go ahead and show up. Even if they're retired, you throw enough money at somebody that they'll go ahead and do it. And then, of course, a lot of people are going to be like, the age of the actors. Well, first of all, you're not having them do stunts. You would just have them doing the dialogue scenes, talking. That's what stunt doubles are for. And I will remind you, because I will make a point of this, as of the recording of this video, these are 4 actors who are still working in Hollywood right now. Ian McKellen, 75. Patrick Stewart, 74. Donald Sutherland, 79. Christopher Lee, 92. And these actors that were in Goranger, they're in about their 60s, maybe 70s, somewhere around there. And you can't get those guys? I don't know. It just seems that they had the ability, but they didn't. And let's examine why they didn't go ahead and do that, because I think that might be telling. Because again, the cameo appearances were an afterthought, but they proved so popular they decided to go ahead and do more and more of these cameo appearances. And somebody had mentioned to me, and it might have been Raptor, that what Gokaiger was doing was trying to appeal to at least the last 10 years of Sentai, to the younger demographic, as opposed to the older demographic, which is why you didn't necessarily see a lot of transformations from the older teams. That's why we saw Geki Ranger and Magi Ranger and Deca Ranger so many times. I think Deca Ranger really had the most transformations of any of them. I'll have to double check that fact, or who knows, I got that off the top of my head. And that's why the toy lines, are just Gal Ranger, Hurricaneger, Deca Ranger, Magi Ranger, all the recent ones. Heck, they had a Robo transformation with the Goranger mecha, but they never made a toy of it. They never had Battle Fever J toy lines. They never had a Live Man toy or anything. All the transformations or all the Zord toys that were tied into any of this only went back as far as Zoo Ranger, coincidentally, when Power Rangers was adapted from. So a lot of people will go ahead and say, but it's supposed to be for the younger generation. And while I grant you that maybe the toy sales were aimed towards that demographic, when you realized how popular these cameos were getting, and at this point they did have a number of older cameos already in the series, why didn't you just go, let's get the Gorangers in there, get somebody from the 1970s? Because I think it would have added a lot more to the dynamic of what the Gokaigers were trying to go ahead and accomplish. And here's the thing. The thing about the Gokaigers, as far as characters concerned, they're very young and very naive. That was kind of the way I perceived the series, because first of all, look at the actors in Gokaiger. They were like tweens, for crying out loud, especially Gosei Red. They were just like little kids playing dress up half the time. But they were the team that was supposed to represent Sentai in the movie, essentially, because it was the full cast, and them interacting with the Gokaiger. I don't think that a team that just got done saving the world and being that young is going to offer any real perspective on what it means to be a Sentai and protect the world the way that an older team does, has gone through sacrifices. Consider this for a second. As we stated, the original Yellow Ranger, Baku, he passed away in the 1970s. You could bring the Goranger in and talk about that loss. Have the Yellow Ranger in the universe actually die. The fact that they went through the deaths of 2 comrades throughout the series, the first and second Yellow Ranger. And then you get to the Gokaiger, and they meet the Gokaiger who are reckless. Let's be honest about that. They're showy. That's, Marvelous's catchphrase and all that. And they go with wild abandon, or restless abandon. I forget what the phrase is. But the fact is, they're reckless. Wouldn't it be poignant to them to point out that to be a Sentai is not to just go out there and beat up people and destroy monsters and all that? That you need to have some sort of control. You need to have clairvoyance. You need to be you need to be in control of your actions. And again, there is more to it. Remember, when I did Sentai Origins with Raptor, one of the things we were amazed about is the first thing that the Gorangers did upon becoming a team is that they rescued a bus of school children from a bomb. That was their first mission, and they did it completely unmorphed. They didn't fight the villain of the day until the end is when they morphed. Their first thing was to protect the children, to protect the people. Now, this is mirrored in the first episode of Gokaiger, where they do protect the children from being attacked by a monster. But still, shouldn't there be a message in there from the Goranger about the sanctity of life and how precious it is? And the thing that the Gokaigers are not realizing, because they're pirates and they're not from Earth, is that life is precious to them. To us humans, that is the most important thing that is reflected in the first mission of the first team, to protect people, and that everybody at some point from that team has gone through loss. And again, they lost both Yellow Rangers. Again, if you want to retcon that the original Yellow Ranger died, but also remember that the Gorangers, the reason they were selected is they were all survivors of base massacres. And that Aka Ranger's brother was killed in that. So they can go ahead and bring up the fact of sacrifice and loss that the Gokaiger don't really understand. Now, then you can have them counter with Joe's assertion that, oh, well, I lost my best friend who's a cyborg, which I don't think he knew that at that time, but nevertheless he lost his friend, Luca's sister, Amelie's family. Marvelous losing a friend in Bosco, and they say we have suffered losses, and then you can unite the teams together, that they have that common ground, that what led them to being heroes is because of the losses that they suffered, that those lives were important to them, and then the Gokaiger could have some sort of response to that, where they can compare the Zaniac as being, they don't care about the sanctity of life. And then that leads us into the rest of our story, basically, that, yeah, the Goranger could still fight alongside the Gokaiger, but they have a new appreciation for each other. because of that common bond between the loss of life and that to go ahead and preserve it, and that's what a Sentai is supposed to go ahead and be about. Now, you got something of that with the Gokager as far as protecting the Earth. That's what Sentai is about, but it doesn't resonate emotionally as it would from this older generation who honestly has seen it all, to this a new generation that thinks they're right, that they're so cocky, they're so sure about what they're doing, but they don't really understand the consequences of their actions. Because, yeah, people they lost is important, but it's not necessarily important that they always have to protect the lives of people on Earth. And you could do that where there, because like there is that moment where Marvelous in the film does sacrifice himself to protect the people in the elevator. Now, how much more poignant would that be if it was a character like Akared doing it to give give that meaning to Marvelous? Because Marvelous, let's again, first episode, we're pirates, they got in the way, we had to stop them anyway. He just blows it off, it's like no big deal. It's like, well, we might as well do it, whatever and stuff. That's kind of his attitude he had with it. But if that elevator scene is where Akared sacrificed himself and Marvelous saw he doesn't know these people, he has been retired, he's old, he's frail, and yet he still got in the way of those bullets or lasers, whatever, to protect these people, then a flashbulb in Marvelous's head goes off and realizes he really cares about people. This is what I should be doing. Because then they can look to the older generation as inspiration and role models and authority figures, mentor figures, if you will, as opposed to just getting kind of lectured by the Gokager, which is kind of what it ended up becoming. So I have to ask the question again. Why was it that the Goranger was not the obvious choice for a crossover? How come we never got Goranger versus Gokaiger? Is it because the actors were too old? Is it because they felt without the Yellow Ranger they couldn't really do anything and they didn't want to have the other Jiro come back to reprise the role? Did they think that the younger audience wouldn't be interested in the Goranger? What is it? And yes, I know you have to have the yearly crossover, but also remember there is no rule that you have to have a yearly crossover. I mean, they got by for several decades without a crossover, and yes, they became popular, and now they're a staple every year because it's worked into the budget, and it's a movie or DVD or whatever now. But with the 35th anniversary, you think they'd do something bigger than that. And I think that the Goranger is bigger than meeting the Gokager in that case. So I'm really curious as to why they didn't go ahead and do that, and why they did what they did. Because again, let's be honest, the film, while important to the fabric of the series, sets up some things and helps flesh some stuff out, is honestly just eye candy, is what it is. The story is pretty weak, the explanations for things are pretty weak, and they really take the concept of death and just kind of blow it out the airlock because, well, death really means nothing in Sentai at this point, and again, with the Goranger, you could have actually had it mean something. So, well, I mean, that's kind of my ramblings for the day on this particular topic, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Are you fine with the Sentai 199 movie? Or do you really think that there should have been some attempt, whether it be in this movie or in the series, or even a follow-up epilogue DVD like they've been doing recently, to get the Goranger and the Gokaiger together? Because, I'm just going to make this last point. I find it interesting what Sentai teams have become so popular that they're getting extra material. Now, I haven't seen Hurricaneger, but Hurricaneger not only, after their series, they got members in the 30th anniversary special. They had the Blue Ranger in there. They appeared in a two-parter in Gokaiger where they actually fought alongside the Gokaiger. They got a 10-year after DVD. They appeared in Akiba Ranger, And oh, by the way, they are getting their own manga novel, or just novel, I forget which, that is coming out talking about further adventures that they have. So why Hurricaneger and why not Goranger? Because I would have actually preferred to see that two-parter, Goranger versus Gokaiger. And yes, I know the whole reason Hurricaneger is probably because pirates and ninjas and all that kind of stuff. But then again, you could have done that with Goranger. But I just kind of think that they're taking what's popular, what's new, and what they typically do, but they're not taking what is significant, what is important to the franchise as a whole. Because it's really hard for me to understand why you're celebrating 35 years, and the best you can do with the original Red Ranger is to have a voiceover of him in the suit and get him on a soundstage just showing his head. And also keep in mind, at the very end of Gokaiger, the actor does appear, gets his powers, and morphs back into Goranger. And I'm like, he's going to go have great adventures, but we don't get to go ahead and see them. So that's all I'm going to go ahead and say about this, but I am really curious to know what your all's opinions are, what you guys think of the whole thing. I just kind of think it was a wasted opportunity to really connect to the past and, again, just come up with this great story off the top of my head, something that would actually resonate with both the franchise and the season that they were doing. So I want to thank you guys for listening right here. I will be back soon on location live here in Kyoto, as it were, to get you guys another podcast here soon. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.